And here we have our mission. Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Breaking Ground. The mission to rendezvous 2 vessels has popped back up again, which is exactly what we want. And we're going to take that. We also wanted this plant flagger Minmus, because we didn't get that mission last time, so we're definitely going to take that too. And there's also plant flag on the moon. We're not going to do that this episode, I think, but that would be useful. We can take up to 7 contracts, and we got 5, so I'm going to leave it alone for now. Because a couple of the other things that I've taken is bring green sandstone back with you, and that is obviously from Minmus. And it says from the Greater Flats or Lowlands. So we'll go and find out if our existing station over there is in one of those biomes, because that gives us a good point to aim for when we're coming down. And everything else you've already seen. So first of all, why don't we rescue our lonely little astronaut? Now you'll see we're up to 622,000. We did that by doing a couple of satellite missions off camera. Nothing excessive, just take a couple of satellites to Minmus with a materials bay on board. Everything else works perfectly fine, and you get lots of nice money for that. Of course, that's still not enough to go and upgrade our research and development to get into really better rockets, but for the moment it gets us to where we need to go. So let's enter the VAB, and we'll go and take a look at our rescue craft. So not you, that's the satellite launcher, just with a materials bay, hence the number 2. We actually want Rescue 1, don't we? So Rescue 1, if you remember, last episode, we have inside here a couple of pods with some parachutes, a docking port on the top. We have some RCS thruster blocks, some RCS tanks with quad monoprop at the back, and everything else is just like you would normally expect for this rocket. So, we're going to need someone to fly it, and given the actual people here, let's just make sure that's Jeb. We don't want an engineer or scientist to actually fly this thing. Actions? Do I actually need any actions on this thing? I don't think I do. No. However, why don't we just put a tower on it? Just because we really should. Okay, so let's put them on this side, and let's just have 2 of them. There we go, and bring this down. Like that. Save it. And launch it. Some of that staging needs changing. I'm just going to change it on the launch pad. So we're on the launch pad, and here's where we're launching from. And here, coming around, is Landertron 1. That is what Val is currently sitting in. And we want to intercept Val. So there's 2 ways of doing it. One is to launch into a lower orbit, and then you'll be catching up. You'll be going relatively faster than this, which means that has to be ahead of us if we're going to catch up. Alternatively, we can go up higher, and then Landertron 1 will catch up to us over a few orbits. Now, while that's actually happening, I'm just going to go in here, because there was one mission that we got to just test the heat shield, I think. So I just need to be able to right-click on it somehow on the launch pad. I'm probably not going to be able to. I can't click through this thing. That's annoying. Can I not click through this? That is the protective shell, and I don't want to actually deploy it. No, we'll actually just do it via a simple mission afterwards. I'll just put just a heat shield on the launch pad, and we'll get rid of the mission that way. Anyway, so I'm just going to fast forward until roughly the Landertron gets a little bit above us. So round about there, let's say. And we'll then launch our rescue craft and take off after Val. And we're not going to take an EVA report while flying low on a rescue craft. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to head up into orbit like normal, except I'm going to stop on an orbit probably just below Val's. And here we are approaching our circularization. We've got the maneuver planner just doing a circularize for us, just so I can talk and do this at the same time. We're just coming up to the right periapsis height, and that's coming up right now. And we should be okay there. So when the Landertron 1 was right above our launch site and we took off, you'll see we're about this far away in the orbits. Now you could plan a little bit further by launching when it's about here. You'll never quite get exactly on target. Let me just say that. Landertron 1 doesn't have much delta V to bring itself down, so we're going to have to go up after it. So every orbit that we go around now will be actually catching up. So what we want to do is create a maneuver that will get us to an intercept with Landertron. Now, does the maneuver plan have intercept just yet? Intercept target chosen time? Not exactly. No. Planes were already matched planes, got 0 degree inclination. We spent all the Delta V on our other one. So, nope, that's fine. So let's just plot a maneuver to get ourselves closer. To do that, it's relatively simple. Choose the other ship as your target. Create a maneuver wherever you like. In this case, we're in a kind of ideal position. And in this case, we're going to increase our prograde until we get close to the other orbit. Okay, so there we go. So you'll see the markers here for maneuvering, basically to see what our intersection distance is. In this case, it's 58 kilometers right there. That's far too far away. So we can do a few things. What happens if we wait an extra orbit? That's much further away. So waiting an extra orbit is probably not a good idea. How about if we just change the time at which we plan this maneuver? So you'll see the separation gets quite low. It gets us to 4.9 kilometers right there, 5 kilometers. That seems to be a nice option to go for. And then we can play around a little bit using our new maneuver planner. Let's just bring in the scale so it's quite small. And then we can just play around with this. So we can play around with the prograde a little bit. And can we get closer? We can. 4.6, 4.5. Let's up the scale a tad. 4.5. Nope, that's the lowest we can get that way. And then can we get any lower going normal or anti-normal? Does not look like it. How about radial? We can. Yeah, we can get 4.4, 4.3. That seems to be enough for an intersect, because once we get that close, we can do some other maneuvers. Note that only takes 36 meters per second. We're going to execute the next node while I talk a little bit more. We have 650 delta V remaining, which is fine. That's not going to be a problem. That amount for orbital maneuvers is probably a good idea, given we're going to be coming in mainly using RCS once we get closer, but we'll see once that happens. And you'll see right here, we're burning using the tiny little spark engine. That's just the bell shape is in the middle of all of our tanks. Okay, and this should get us an intersect. 1-0. Okay, and now we're just going to have to wait until we're around there. So let's just fast forward to around about here, and I'll see you there for some maneuvering. And here we are, we've finished warp. You'll see that small little square. It's now 6 kilometers away from us. So what we're going to do is turn on SES. We're going to point ourselves retrograde. Note that we're in the target option, not orbit or surface. We're in target. Whoops. I know you can't see this very well. Sorry about that, but we're on the dark side of the planet. It just happens to be where we are for this particular thing. And we're basically going to bring ourselves to a halt relative to the Landertron. And that's just going to happen when we're close. So let's just walk forwards a little bit. You can see it's a little bit here. So the target is increasing velocity relative to us just because it's getting closer. Well, it's going to pass us basically if we don't watch out. And 4.5 kilometers, that seems to be a good point to do this. So I'm just going to burn off all this speed relative. So let's just bring that down as much as possible. Okay, and now we're just going to point directly at the target. So we don't have target nodes here just yet, I'm afraid. So that we're going to have to point manually and get that going. We need to just expand Jeb's experience a little bit more to get that done a little bit better. So let's point directly at, and that seems to be roughly around about right. I realize it's quite hard for you to see, but this is the rear, and we are pointing towards Landertron. And there is there's our target marker we can see. We just can't automatically point at it, I don't think. We could use it with Smart ASS, actually. That would work, I think. Target plus. Yeah, you can point at it that way. Okay, and then we're just going to increase velocity towards it. That'll be enough. I think 10 meters per second, because I can fast forward. And we're going to be getting closer to it. You'll also see that when we've done this, when we've braked for our target, we've assumed the same orbit, roughly. And that means we can now head towards it. So I'm going to head towards it, and we probably should get towards the light side. You'll be able to see a little bit more once we do that. And here we are, pulling up alongside Landertron. Now, it'll be quite easy to rescue at this particular point because all we need to do is get Val to leave, EVA over, and we're done. Now, that's not quite the case here in that we are just going to pull up alongside, and let's get ourselves to a 0 relative velocity. There we go. Whoops. Slightly off. I also probably should put some solar panels on this because we are using up some power by doing all this maneuvering. So I'm just going to turn that off for now and leave ourselves spinning. So you'll notice on the top of Landertron is where our sort of docking port is. And that's what we're going to aim for. And then on here, this is where we're going to be controlling from. This is our docking port. And we also have the docking camera mod. So you can see this quite nicely here. And that lets you zoom in. And there's all kinds of other different things about controlling this. There is also the Navyfish enhanced, what's it called now? The Navyfish docking alignment indicator, if I remember rightly. Yeah, in any case, we're not going to worry about those. What I'm going to do right now is just sort of aim a little bit above, just up there. And we're just going to align ourselves. We're also going to turn on RCS. And we should, with a little bit of roll, whoops. Yep. A little bit of roll, be able to lift ourselves up. There we go. And I'm using the I, J, K, and L keys, and we can use this to thrust ourselves forward as well. So we're not using our main engine whatsoever. We're just going to stick to using our RCS thrusters. And I'm going to position ourselves so the two docking ports are above each other, and then we can rotate and get a little bit of last-minute alignment ready for docking. So I think that's far enough up. And I'm just going to maneuver us forwards. I'm going to do that off camera. And you see, here we are. We're quite close now. So I'm going to turn the docking camera back on. It all uses power. So if your docking camera's on, you're wondering why you're losing power. That's why. And you'll see here we're able to see, and we can zoom in a little bit, but we don't need to right now. We're coming in just above the docking port of the other craft. If you nudge it, just switch docking, just switch craft with the angle, the square angle brackets, and you're just going to basically get ourselves maneuvered over. It's very hard to see from this particular kind of angle, unfortunately, but let's just turn around so you can see it from this side, hopefully. But we're really going to be looking at this side of things for everything else, because we're able to control things with the RCS port, and you'll see even slight taps of that just change the camera quite significantly. So there we go. And we can just bring ourselves up like that. And we're going to point right at the center here. So we're just going to try and get this roughly right. So around about there. Whoops, other way. Okay, now we're going to thrust forward. Time to dock. It gives us a docking. It says like 80 seconds or something like that. So as we're coming in, we can just keep ourselves aligned with the IJKL keys, which is kind of nice and should be quite straightforward. So in we come. There's the center of the port. Time to dock is like 20 seconds. Let's just zoom in visually so you can see that and get rid of our nav ball for a second. And I need to go back to the IJKL keys. And there they go. We're docked. Let's turn off the docking camera. And bring up the nav ball. Turn off the SAS. Turn off the RCS. And we are docked. So that should be that mission done. Yep. Rendezvous 2 vessels in orbit of Kerbin. Dock 2 vessels. And you'll see Valentina is now connected with with Jeb even. So we need to transfer her across from this to here. So you'll see I did actually guess right. Jeb's in this one, Val's in this one. So easy way to do that is just click on the transfer queue button, transfer crew even, choose Valentina, and it gives you the options. So we're going to choose that, and I think that then means that they're both in here. So if we just choose transfer crew again, no crew on that part. So they're all in here, which is good. Okay, so now we can do a few things. We can drag this down with us. That'll be a nice way to clean up the orbits, I think. But let's just see. And this is a lot like the Russian current launch option. There are 3 modules attached to it. There's a service module, the habitation module, and then there's another one. I think it's the docking module. But in our case, we've got a lander stuck on the top. So let's just take a look at how much delta V it would be to get us back down onto the ground. So I'm just going to just do it here. It doesn't matter where we do it. And let's just bring our orbit in. And we want the usual kind of thing of having a periaps at around about 30. 29 will be fine. So there we go. Whoops, that's too far. Far too far. It's very, very sensitive towards the end of that. But even if we went straight to the ground, it only costs us 145. We have more than enough delta V to do that, even with everything attached. So let's get ourselves pointed retrograde. Okay, and in fact, what I'm probably going to do is just go around half an orbit, just so we can come down on the light side, and I'll maybe even do this maneuver back around about here, so that we can try and get a little bit closer to the Kerbal Space Center. And having done that maneuver, and also don't forget to shut down your lander's engine. You do not need that engine whatsoever. If you have any fuel left in it, you'll have a bit of a problem if you get Megjeb to try and do it. Anyway, we're just going to point retrograde like we normally would, except this time we're going to be undocking from here. So let's just choose that. We want to undock, don't we? Where's the undock control? There it is. So let's just rotate ourselves so we're not going to be anywhere near where we need to be. So let's rotate that way. Yep, so sling ourselves that way. And off away goes our lander. We've already done our maneuver, so that's coming down as well. And there's no two ways about it. And then we also have our service module. So that will then detach from here. And we're about to enter the atmosphere, so we can probably throw it the other way. So let's just throw it that way. Or that way, if I press space twice. Regardless, they're heading off and they're going to hit the atmosphere very shortly. Hopefully they're not going to head back towards us in any way, but they might hit each other. Who knows? Could be a nice maneuver there. And we have, of course, still both of our astronauts in the right place. So now we can go how we normally would. Point ourselves retrograde, and then here comes the atmosphere. So hopefully they will survive. Let's see. And here we are. Unfortunately, we are going to be short. The KSC is over there somewhere, just on the beach, and we're on the wrong side of the mountains. However, we did survive just fine through the atmosphere. So now we can pull our chutes. 2 of them. 2 pods. Hopefully that will be fine as far as the final velocity is concerned. So let's bring ourselves down towards the ground. Change to altitude rather than sea level. And let's just grab a crew report. Why not? Well, it hasn't been for science, but let's see, how have we got to? 5, that's no problem whatsoever. You could drop the heat shield if you want to go a little bit slower, but we're perfectly fine. And let's head back to the base. Important scientific discoveries. Test the heat shield. Okay. Now that we've designed a craft that is suitable for rendezvous, we can just redesign it to deal with basically landing on Minmus without a problem. And that is much simpler. You can just do a regular capsule, doesn't need a docking port or anything like that. And it is slightly heavier, about 200 kilograms than the lander can. However, we don't need to take that extra science with us, those extra cargo holds, sort of cargo bays. So everything else will be a little bit more straightforward, I think. And we end up with 2000 delta V on this stage, so that is pretty good. And once we actually attach the rest of the rocket with a couple of changes, we don't need the 2 thud engines at the bottom. We should be able to get up into orbit just fine with this. Everything becomes a little bit simpler. So more straightforward rocket there, based on the first one, just with slight changes for the lander. That gets us back towards Minmus, because we're going to be given money now for actually planting a flag on Minmus, again, even though we've done it. And we're also going to be able to potentially pick up some of that green stone, and each one of those missions will get us another 100 grand, and that will get us much more towards that 951 million that we need to upgrade the R&D. And here I decided to come in quite high and in a different flat area than our central station is deployed. Just going to get different science and different stuff from actually landing. Remember, there's not really much science on board this ship. It's largely going to be just planting the flag, and that's going to be just done for a mission. Whatever else science is available around, we will of course take EVA reports, etc., but not too much of a concern. Let's just bring ourselves in for a landing. You'll see the landing point is right at the terminator between the flat area and the hillside, so we can probably bring that in a little bit more. Yep, and just we have a walking distance if we need to. And we have a suicide burn just as before, but we have a bit more fuel than this time than on the moon, so we have a little bit more leeway about how we come in. You'll see it's over here on the right hand side, 8 seconds left, so we are going to use that, but we're going to end up in a hover if we hit it at 0, so let's just do that now, or 0.2 seconds before 0. And we'll see that come in, hopefully not have a problem, and hopefully come into a hover. So in we come. And you'll see the suicide burn countdown is going up, but that's a good sign. It means we should stop short. And let's bring ourselves in. There comes the surface. And that looks like it's going to be quite nice. So let's just cut ourselves off. And then let's lock ourselves to, well, not necessarily just up, but let's just cancel it all our velocity and bring ourselves in for a nice landing pointing straight down. There we go. We should just go in straight down. There's the point. And is that the area we need to actually go and pick up a stone from? Well, we'll go and find out, shall we? So let's lock ourselves up and just reduce our velocity when we're coming in. Our legs should be able to take this just fine, or the lander legs I should say. But let's just slow down a little bit. And there we go. Nice soft landing. Straight onto Minmus. And we do, of course, get a crew report. Nice. And we can get out an EVA ourselves. Let's just remove the landing flight engineer stuff. And we can let go, use RCS, and use that to bring ourselves down onto the surface. And of course, this just requires a flag. So yeah, we can get EVA reports once we're still on the surface. Yeah, okay. And let's just plant a flag. There we go. Val might have been here first. Okay, our flag's down. That should give us the mission. Yep. And now it says bring a green sandstone and Minmus back to Kerbin. So I'm just going to go and check out some of those nearby rocks and see if they actually count. Let's go and find out. And in we come. Let's just slow ourselves down a little bit so we don't crash into the ground with any great speed. And let's hover over there and let's see if we can actually interact with this thing. Otherwise, it's going to be a specific kind of... yeah, doesn't look like we can. So maybe there's only a certain kind of rock that we can actually pick up. And we are in the... let's just see, the mission said something about it being the Greater Flats. We are in the Great Flats, and we are in the Great Flats. So yeah, the only thing I can think of is a specific kind of rock. I'll go and keep and have a look around, see if we can find anything. And I couldn't find any. I had a look around, not these kind of rocks, but what we're looking for is something much smaller, looking more like a real rock. These are quite a flat texture, and it's going to be quite small. So I've just got back to our craft and headed out, see if I can actually find them. If I can't, then you won't see a section in here, but I will link to a Reddit post in the description below of someone who shows a picture of one, so you know what to actually look like for yourself, if it looks like for yourself. In our case, we're just going to make sure we're going to keep heading this way. And I'm going to get a little bit further up, just so that we're not heading back down towards the ground again. And you keep an eye out. But they're really small. Even stuff like this, it's very, very hard to spot. So I think the only way to do this properly is to build something like a rover and head it back out here. So maybe that's what's intended. Should be an interesting construction project, really. And of course, I've been around a few kilometers in each direction. Still haven't found one. I did start a new save after the expansion came out, by the way, so it shouldn't be that that's causing the actual issue. So unfortunately for now, what I'm going to do is just head back off-world, because we have some science and we have our planting of a flag. So we should be able to just head back out east, which is this direction. And over that hill and then back up into orbit. And then back to the space center, of course. Still can't spend, but we're getting much closer. If we could find one of those moon rocks, that would be much closer indeed. However, we aren't able to do that. So I will put a link down to a Reddit thread where people were saying that they're going to look at making them a little bit more visible next patch. And we'll see where we go with that. In any case, are there any new missions for us to actually do? Orbital stations around the moon. So we're getting to the point of basically having multiple Kerbals living and working in space. So antenna, docking port, and generate power. And these missions tend to be quite profitable. We can adjust Sat Launcher 2. That'll get us a little bit of money. We're not ready to go to Junior yet. That is something we will do eventually, however. And that is moon ground science. We haven't put anything down on the moon yet. We have only done it on Minmus. And then some more slightly profitable ones by basically getting satellites in synchronous orbit of Minmus, which is actually relatively easy. We only need a thermometer, so we can get a really light Sat Launcher 1 rather than Sat Launcher 2 satellite up there. And that should be straightforward. Yeah, so I think we're going to definitely take that. I'll do that off camera, however, and next episode, when we come back, we should have enough to upgrade research and development and get us, well, much farther. There's lots of nice nodes in here, particularly the heavier rocketry stuff. There is the mainsail, which is quite wonderful to getting interplanetary. We can obviously still use the skipper, but the mainsail is nice. And then you have the small twitch engines, which are kind of useful for landers, small landers, unmanned landers, and of course a bunch of other stuff. Mainly I want the stuff down here. We want the stuff that's electrics, so photovoltaic panels that can fold out into large arrays. Obviously we can build some with hinges and stuff like that, but we need a large panel anyway, so we need to construct it manually. We should also in here be able to, I think it's probably going to be up in here, get more science available. There's a new science experiment for the ground stuff, so that's entirely new. We could go and head out to Minmus, land next to the existing ones, maybe put another solar panel in place, and put the weather analyzer out there. How that would show weather on Minmus, not sure. Anyway, and there is the one that we probably really want, which is the mobile processing lab. Putting that at the center of a large station in orbit actually has a really good sort of base. You can basically do lots of experiments. You can get scientists, put them up there, get much more science, but it's 3.5 tons. It's huge. So you need to necessarily go up to the Poodle engines, which is over here, the Poodle and the Skipper, to get those off the ground and into orbit. So that's a whole other class of rocket that we haven't got to yet. And of course, better command modules. Mark 1-3, which has a crew capacity of 3. So we'll be able to bring our scientist and engineer with us and get them leveled up. Anyway, that's all upcoming once we manage to upgrade this one building. So we'll see you next episode for that. If you enjoyed this one, we've got a couple of good missions, one back to Minmus, and of course rescue in orbit. Give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, click on the bell if you want more notifications, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, and of course share it with other people who might be interested. Otherwise, as always, the most important thing, go down to the comments, comment for other people who are playing through this expansion. Otherwise, we'll see you next time, and as always, thanks for watching.